This leads me to ask now about Indigenous knowledge of water and use of water.
Yep.
What do you know about that, and what can we learn from that?
A lot, actually. And in fact, even in the management program that I was involved with in the Snowy Mountains, there was an Indigenous component to it. There was a cultural flow, so now there's this concept of cultural flows, as in how much water, or we can allocate some water in a managed river for providing the need. So perhaps that might be, culturally fishing was really important, so how do we target flows that will sustain those fish populations? In the Snowies, there were the rivers were really important in Indigenous culture. As far as I understand anyway, they were almost like highways, as physical highways that people could follow. And the Snowy area is an amalgamation of 5 different rivers. So the Snowy itself, there was the Murrumbidgee, there was the Murray, there's a couple of other rivers as well. They all meet in a similar area, and then the groups would follow them and have eat the bogong moth, feast on the moths. So it's ceremony, a place of ceremony as well. And the managers had actually started to reconnect with the traditional owners and the elders and take their knowledge of, they said, in different seasons the water would turn different colours in their language, like depending on, and I think they worked out, in this particular season the wind's blowing from the west and the dust comes from the desert and that colours the water a certain way, and then in another season the snow melt would come. So even though, and that's really important in that when we built a lot of these structures, nobody thought to measure, we just didn't think about the environment in the same way. So when trying to determine what you aim for in rehabilitating or restoring a river, we don't really have good historical data. We can't say, it looked like this, so we'll go back to that. We don't even know what was there to begin with. But using a lot of that Indigenous knowledge, you can try and recreate a picture, or perhaps there are dreamtime stories of particular species being in the river, and we're okay, well, that fish is no longer present anymore, but we know from the stories that it was there once. So perhaps as a long-term endpoint, let's try and create a habitat that might one day support that kind of fish being there again. Yeah. So it gives you clues as to what you can aim for.
And I guess in trusting in the complexity and the sense in the complexity, or the need for the complexity, even though we don't understand exactly what that need is. We just know that complexity works.
Yeah.
So I imagine that if you hear a Dreamtime story about a particular species once inhabiting a particular area, the argument could be, well, if we can see that fish in the water again, we can make the assumption that many other things are falling into place as well.
Yeah.
Because it's a complex system, and you can't just sort of get a fish and plop it in there, and there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, that's right. And that's as in decades down the track.
Yeah.
Perhaps we can aim for that as a goal, because it's hard to set an aim for rehabilitation. Maybe it will never be this Eden or this mythical lost paradise. There's sort of a paper about it a lot, aiming for lost paradises and river restoration. And we use the river in a certain way now that has such a big impact on it. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be pristine again.